we have Mutegeki Cliff, who has been studying the digital spaces and democracy. He's been doing a study. Perhaps we would love to bring you in, and you came in late before I can go to Godwin and Precious, and then I can open up the space for all of you to make a contribution. What has your research said about how young people are taking advantage of the digital spaces? You're welcome, sir. Cliff.
Thank you so much, Solomon. And it's great to be here, and I'm delighted to be here today to discuss this topic, which is both timely and transformative. And basically, my work is I specialize in guiding organizations and communities through the exciting yet complex world of digital transformation. And in a time when technology is at the heart of democratic engagement, my role involves helping organizations and individuals navigate this digital space effectively. Then I also work to ensure that digital tools and platforms are not only accessible, but also utilized to their fullest potential to foster, among other things, democratic participation, to enhance transparency, and then also to drive social change. Now, our digital age offers unprecedented opportunities for young people to shape the future of our country, and that is by leveraging technology. I believe we can amplify our voices, we can mobilize communities and hold leaders accountable as we explore how these digital spaces influence photography. So my goal is to highlight mainly how adoption of these digital tools can empower us to actively engage in the democratic process and contribute to a more inclusive and equitable society. So for this, allow me to share two submissions. One is social media as a catalyst for change. Now, social media as a catalyst for change, we all know that social media has become a powerful tool for political engagements with platforms like X, which we are using for this Twitter space, other platforms like Facebook, Instagram. They allow us to express our views, to organize movements, and hold leaders accountable, like I said earlier on. And in the recent years, we have witnessed inspiring examples of youth-led social campaigns that have shaped the political discourse and also driven positive change. Now, looking at social media as a catalyst for change, we can highlight out several things, from amplifying voices to organize, holding leaders accountable, like I said earlier on, to fostering dialogue. And this Twitter space is actually one of those tools that are very, very effective in helping to foster dialogue and reach a huge number of people. But furthermore, you look at things like raising awareness and educating, and this is where things like civic tech come in, because we believe that civic tech is one of those things that can be a game changer when it comes to participation, both youth participation and participation from the general population. It's basically that plug between the government and its population. And we know that civic technology holds a significant potential for empowering young people and advancing democracy in Uganda. And this is through providing digital tools and training. Through this, civic tech can help to equip youth with the skills needed to effectively engage in the civic activities and advocacy. It also facilitates meaningful participation through online platforms, petitions, public discussions, advocacy, and fostering a more vibrant democratic process. In addition to that, civic tech also promotes transparency, accountability, and this allows citizens to monitor government activities and report on public services. And additionally, it enhances the electoral participation with voter education tools and digital voting options.
Cliff.
And
yeah, Cliff, I just wanted to come in there and thanks for that research. And it's really good that we anchor our conversations in research. I wanted you to speak to the challenges that come with it: misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and how we can move past it. I think it's something that is captured in your report somewhere.
Well, misinformation really poses very significant challenges. Most times we find ourselves, or quite a huge number of people would share a post without necessarily verifying the source, without verifying the credibility of the content in it. And then you find, for example, case in point, you have one person having 10,000 followers sharing wrong information. Now, if that reaches a huge number of people, it can erode, if it's a personality, it can erode their reputation. And ultimately, it contributes to eroding trust. So that is what I can, among other things, respond with regarding your question.
All right, thanks. Cliff, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Anthony, no, I'm going to come to Godwin here, and then I can come back to Precious. Godwin, the digital spaces, I don't know if you've got a great network, but certainly the great digital spaces have provided a great opportunity for all of us to engage, for young people to engage, to bring on other people. But along with it have come some challenges. How can we navigate those challenges that come with leveraging online spaces to widen the shrinking space? Godwin, Karibu.
Solomon, I hope I'm clear now.
Yes, we can now hear you.
Because
Bernard,
discussion.
Hello? Now we can, okay, can you maybe stand there?
Okay, I'm where to stand. I'm going to move a car.
Okay, let's try. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, but you break along. But let's hear you. Let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, I hope it stays stable. We'll try to speak.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can't hear you. We can't hear you very well. Let's let you get even better network. I'm going to bring you back. My brother Godwin, I think network is disturbing you. Precious, let me bring you in. You know, with someone discussed social media as a double-edged sword, which has great opportunities, but also so many challenges, including a place where young people sometimes fuel crises using fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. How have you been able to stay on course, to be heard, but navigating those very difficult terrains of misinformation, disinformation, and fake news? Precious, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Solomon. Before I answer that, I'm going to take you back to, or I want to react to something Tony said. Tony said was talking about social media being enough, asking is it enough, or saying it is not enough. Definitely I agree with him, it is not enough, but of course it's a great start. In like I was deliberate to say, in a country where traditional media and mainstream media are censored and limited to a certain category of people, I think social media is a great start. And he was, of course, talking about, standard citizens who understand what and what. I understand that, but this government has been deliberate not to produce people who understand their civic rights and civic duties. For example, on the previous spaces we've been holding, it is sad to note that most graduates in Uganda have never sat in a class teaching, the Constitution, or teaching, anything about, the civic rights or anything. And to make matters worse, it's our own curriculum was, the politics, the political education and the civic education was scrapped off. So in the first place, you cannot demand, quality citizens that need to understand when you're not producing them. So I want to say that, yes, social media has been an outlet for everyone because there's no gatekeeper to social media, So yes, it has brought in so many people, but of course we should be looking at why we have savages on social media. I think Tony was being, too civil to say maybe savages and everything, because I could just, I want to speak like someone who is not an elite. And of course, there's so many people who speak out of ignorance, out of frustration. But have you ever, like Tony, with all your statistics and with all your data and with all this knowledge that you are pouring on us, have you ever thought to sit down and say, okay, why are these people so frustrated? Why are they not even giving in chance to understand all that I'm saying? It's because the government is not interested in producing the quality citizens that you're talking about. Someone is saying, the youths or the people making noise on social media are extremists. Yes, truth is most of us are extremists because of the situation that has been created by our own government. B-Wall was saying that if we are to have a conversation with you, Solomon, is you talk and I listen. And when I talk, you should be able to listen to me. But to think that when the youth rise to say we need jobs, you are labeled as hooligans. When the youth raise their voice to say, why are you looting this country? You come out to call them noisemakers. When people try to say something, you say, when you try to come and exercise your civic duty of peacefully protesting, I'm going to show you fire. How do you, who is really not tolerant? Who is really not tolerant and who is not understanding? The elites before would make us think they really know these things by, talking complicated statistics like Tony is doing, actually giving us, data. I appreciate that because you're all graduates, you're all educated people. But does that reflect or does that help me in before because I have my smartphone already, So how are you going to curb the actual problems without being so sophisticated? Because as we speak, the interns are on streets. They want to be deployed. You think speaking, in data and bring all these statistics will help? No. When the interns are on the street saying we need to be deployed, in parliament they're saying we want to take 5 billion to go to city in Gulu so that we understand the problems in Gulu. But of course, Gulu has representatives. They know that Uganda has representatives. So if the representatives from Gulu cannot, represent the people of Gulu in parliament, that it takes the whole parliament and it has cost Uganda 5 billion to go and sit in Gulu to understand the problems of Gulu, not even to solve the problems of Gulu, but to understand the problems of Gulu. This creates the savageness. This creates the anger. This creates this desperate youth in this country. how do you explain, how do you make an intern that is going to you know, uh, how do you call an intern that is going to have to have a whole year, you know, sitting, not qualified to do anything, but has failed to do the internship, to sit and dialogue and understand, you know, if this government was interested in quality citizens, it would have created them. But in the first place, it was never interested in creating this. With that said, you asked me how we've been able to manage, you know, fake news and everything else. In this country, there's no managing Solomon, honestly. Recently, the New Vision is the leading outlet for the government. New Vision is the leading leading fake news. You know, the intelligence in Uganda is leading the fake news. So how am I precious? You know, not supposed to ride on fake news. We are running on propaganda as a country. We are running on fake news from the government's newspapers. So come on, this country is a mess, Solomon. This country is a mess. That's all I can say. We are in a big mess. We're a big fat mess.
Wow. Precious, thank you. We're in a mess. Okay.
I wish you'd allow me respond
Anthony,
a
I'll
bit.
bring you in. Let me first give an opportunity to my brother Godwin Toko, who is joining us using the handle JJ. Godwin, you were still making your submission, and then I can open up the floor for people to make contributions. Godwin, you're welcome. I hope the network can allow you.
I hope this is more stable. I've tried everyone's phone here. I hope this will work.
That's
Can you hear me
much
now?
better. Yes, we can.
Solo, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I was saying first that I think that the discussion was getting a bit lost in topics about regime change and things like that. If we are to discuss regime change, every single method of regime change, I'll point for you examples that failed. I mean, we've seen dictatorships rise through elections. We've seen anarchies rise where elections were organized and then somehow, I mean, Haiti, whoever is in power in Haiti didn't get there because of social media. They got there through an election, but then somehow things still slipped out of their hands. But that's a discussion for another day. Now, going back to the topic that we have for today's discussion, how I understand this topic basically is that we are looking at the ability of people to promote democracy or to hold their leaders accountable in the pursuit of democracy using social media. And for me, how I understand this is that basically people have used social media, especially the youths in Uganda, they have used it to a large extent successfully. Now, is that the end of discussion? No. If you think there is something else that other people should do, please do it. I don't think anyone is standing in your way. Don't then come and tell them, oh, you're doing it wrongly because there is this problem. Well done if you can notify the problem. Sir, now, if you've noticed the problem, madam and sir, how do you pick it up?
Okay.
Did we lose Toko? Not here.
Well, I thought it was only me who was losing him. Toko, are you there? Okay. I really wish I
dropped off again.
No, you're back.
Okay, I've given
You're
up.
back. You're back, Toko.
Oh, you can hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, so basically I was saying that as for social media in Uganda, I think it has been used effectively. And you don't have to look at a large scale, something at the scale of regime change. There is a young girl who was shot by KCC officials. Using social media, people were able to hold the family, to hold KCC accountable, and she got a deep fix. Is that a good thing? 100% a good thing. Are people holding leaders accountable? For instance, look at the march to parliament. Let's say 10 people turned up. Let's not say 200, 300, 1,000 people. Just 10 people turned up. Has it created a discussion on the issue of corruption? Even as recent as yesterday, you had the Church of Uganda Archbishop saying that these people should be helped in this push against corruption, for me, that is a success. So many times it's easier to critique and say, oh, some people just did this thing and they didn't go on the street. Not everyone will go on the street. Some other people have to play other roles. If you're in combat, and I learned this from General Mugisha Muntu, he says there are those who will be cooking, because when people go to fight and they're not fed, they will die of hunger. There are those who will go there and provide medical attention to those who have been shot. There are those who will go there and they'll provide the technical and strategic level of discussion. So everything is played at a certain level. So for me, as far as March Parliament, for instance, was concerned, a very, very robust and important discussion. But let's now scale it down a bit. Who is causing the rage and anger among Ugandans on social media? It's not that social media is causing it. It's that people are failing in their roles. It's like when you go to a place like Chitezi, where I am from right now, there are claims of hundreds of people. Someone said as many as 80 households buried underground, and you go there and there are 3 excavators. Then Prime Minister comes and she's all laughing and saying, "Ono mwana wensanze wano muzade we afude katinze muchindekere ngina mulabirira," as if that is such a big thing. The real tragedy is that these are the people whom then are rage farming. They're the ones who are causing people to get so angry. So when Toko comes and explains and says that there's a problem with this leadership of this country, and then you say, oh, Toko is the one who is causing people to be angry. He isn't. At the end of the day, I'm only showing you where the problem is. And the problem exists because there's leadership failure. Now, to conclude on this particular issue, are there problems with social media? Yes. So, for instance, the question you asked someone earlier about fake news and misinformation and all that, I think it was Onyango Bo wrote an article. I remember reading it while I was at campus. He said, talking about fake news and misinformation, he said basically, news is like a marketplace. If I went to Nakawa Market, where I go sometimes to buy stuff, I can find every type of chicken, including dead chicken, or let's say tomatoes. I can even find rotten tomatoes. There could even be poison tomatoes. So many times, people who are reading, who are looking for information, you also have the duty to discern and see which sources of information you get information from and how that information looks. Now, in the Ugandan context, the problem is that when you start pushing these narratives, they are used to curtail basically everything. 90% of what turns out as government position in this country is frustrated off as fake news. Something happens, oh, that's fake news, not true. Then you begin to see later that gets to the reality. So while I don't dismiss the fact that fake news does exist and it can be very problematic, while I don't miss the fact that disinformation does exist and can be problematic, I just want us to be cautious, not to give the other side a rope that they'll use for hanging each of us, because I will say things that I know are true, but then I can't prove it at that particular point in time. I just need like a few hours for it to become news. Then they'll use that against me. So I think I can stop there, Solomon, and I was speaking so fast before the phone could go off. I hope I made my case.
Thank you very much, Godwin. I hear you. The little successes are important to celebrate, and I can't agree more with you. I mean, the power of social media and how we can, leverage it. I mean, it's very important that we celebrate the few things that we've been able to do. I do investigations which I put on YouTube and disseminate online. And out of those investigations, we've seen those investigations live beyond just being published online to start a life of their own. And sometimes they have led to some action, but also most importantly, the public gets to know some of these things that have been happening. So I hear you. Each of us, can do some, whatever we can do. It doesn't have to be regime change, like you mentioned. But thanks for that. It's your time to talk back. It's your time to be part of the conversation. It's your time to say something. Okay, Anthony, do you want me to give you a second? You had wanted to make a response?
I'll really appreciate that.
Okay, let me give you a minute, and then I can give Biwol a minute, and then I open it up to the public to have to hear from them. You're welcome, Natif.
Yes, so I think we need to understand that Uganda's history, if we look into it, is defined by warlordism. We were a bunch of kingdoms and chiefdoms that would expand using the spear and whatever tool or weapon we had to take territory. Later, we adopted guns. It's not a surprise that we have the president of a supposed democracy referring to himself as a Sabalwanyi. Now, what we are seeing on social media is the embrace and the extension of that warlordism, that people will frame these narratives into, if you don't agree with me, therefore you're with the enemy, and I'm going to abuse you. And we've seen it for the last maybe 3-4 weeks. Now, as a friend said, it's now also emerging that without the organizations needed to take outrage that you're seeing now, it's right for people to be angry. You can't look at the deaths in Chitezi and remain the same. But it's not enough to just package that outrage and push hashtags. And that's all I'm saying, that it's emerging that without the organizations needed to take outrage, create awareness, and build communities able to lawfully demand change, the digital world has contributed negatively to social cohesion. There's a reason why you're seeing racism on the rise, far-right parties in Europe on the march, xenophobia, vaccine denial, and talking about vaccine denial, I'll go to my training as a pharmacist and use an example of that. I used to work in vaccine access and delivery many years ago. But we face vaccine access and vaccination. If we left it just to community narratives and didn't guide those narratives, no one would take their child for vaccination. So if we leave community narratives to prevail, can we vaccinate anyone? Should a scientist, an expert in that field, come to the public square and choose popularity? Would there still be any science? But in this day and age, we risk having the giants of social media capturing citizen agency, basically hijacking it, and then like I referred to you, and just in 30 seconds, like I told you earlier, that you have an individual through one tweet having more reach than the weekly circulation of, say, the Daily Monitor and New Vision. When such an individual comes to the marketplace of ideas, we need to ask ourselves, are we dealing with them as an individual or as a brand? Is the mass alignment with that individual purely on the basis of their wonderful ideas or on the stardust that runs off of that individual? That gets these masses to believe that any perceived association with that individual makes them a star. And we are seeing a lot of this in this hashtag kind of activism and removing a dictator kind of talk. So when we get to a point where ideas clash, are they contested on their merits or on a brand preservation perspective? Now, you have well-meaning activists, and we have a lot of them on this call. They are held hostage by likes and retweets. They see themselves as rock stars of public policy marketplace, and they see the public as their clients. Are we then going to say that is all we are going to use social media for? The answer should be no. And if a native or a public square as an organization comes out and says, no, I think we can do much more, and Pliam asked, what have you done to actually roll back this situation? And I can say we have chosen to plant our flag on civic education. Whether it takes us 10 years, 100 years, we'll do it. We do not say the people who are pushing outrage, who are getting people to, speak up to the government and speak up against bad leadership are doing anything wrong. Far from it. And unfortunately, in this day and age of packaged outrage, that is how the conversation will be framed into some sort of soundbite that can fit in 140 characters, and it's pushed out. But I would want for us to have a better examination of the role of social media in driving societal changes that goes just beyond people being angry because another person doesn't agree with them.
All right, interesting. Thank you.
Solomon.
I hear you. B-Wall, you're welcome. Cliff,
Solomon.
I'm going to come to you.
Yes. I want to start first of all by saying that at the risk of sounding like I don't understand what Natif says, I want to say that first of all, the narrative that we need to do more with social media, it takes away from all the work that has been done prior to social media, right? That when the messages were being swung from courtroom to courtroom, when the Bobby Wines are being taken from, one cell to the other, when people are being tortured, that's work that's being done actually on the ground, right? What social media is just another tool, right? An additional tool. I think requesting or asking or demanding for more from social media, first of all, is negating all the other work that has been done before. But also, secondly, is being blind to what social media has actually done. And Toko has very elaborately explained here all of the good stuff that social media has done. So I think we need to first recognize that. Secondly, there will always be people who play to the gallery that you can't run away from, that you absolutely can't run away from. But that doesn't change the fact that they are good-willed and good-hearted people who are actually chasing the dream, who are actually trying to push for positive change. And once we concentrate on the naysayers, once we concentrate on those other people, you take away from all the good work that's been done. The other thing is the challenge for Uganda, as I already highlighted, that this is not an ordinary fight, right? The ground is not leveled, so it's not like we have one fighter and they have one fighter. No, we have 3 fighters. They have 5,000 fighters in the form of money, in the form of guns, in the form of all these things, power. So the fight is different. And finally, I think the discussion about the Arab Spring, the Arab Spring, and all these things, while it's valid, I think it kind of takes away from what we are trying to achieve here, because what, for example, we were trying to achieve was an end to corruption, right? And the president had come out very vocally and said, he's very interested in ending corruption, and he wants people to reach out to him to see how he can fight corruption. And we said, okay, look, this is a very positive move. We would like to be a part of this fight against corruption, right? But because the regime is anchored in corruption, if you fight corruption, it seems like you're fighting the regime. That's why there's a threat. Otherwise, if there was no threat, they would be happy to fight, corruption with us. And finally, on the issue of, misinformation and disinformation and fake news, first of all, I believe in precedent, right? If there's somebody who has shared fake news before, once, twice, they probably aren't somebody I'm going to respect, right? And me, I always believe cream rises to the top. I never really worry about these things of misinformation and disinformation and fake news and whatever, because there are people who are consistent in sharing information that is questionable. Why would you want to get information from that person again? And as I've said so many times before, that people who peddle fake news, people who peddle, questionable stuff will always be found out, because the truth always comes out. They will always be found out. And as an individual, if you are interested in the truth, you will always find the truth. That's the honest fact. You will always find the truth. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Biwol, for that. All right. The youth, the democratic spaces, and the quest for democracy in Uganda. It's your time to talk back. It's your time to give your thoughts and views. Let's get to hear from you. I'll start off with Mr. Guma. Mr. Guma, you're welcome.
Thank you, Solomon. And me precisely, I want to talk about 3 things. And this will give us, the in-depth analysis of what is happening, the reality actually, because when you look at what is happening, the democracy we are questing for, the youth rising and, coming into spaces to talk more about it, I want to put it basically to the system we are using. Now, when I talk about the system, there are very many systems of leadership that are in the world. But if you look at what is happening, the democracy is not only being affected here in Uganda, it is affected all over the world because of some consequences that are arising. We are seeing a lot that is coming from countries that are autocratic. They are taking care of their people. They are growing so rich. They have, this system that caters for everyone. And yet countries that are having, absolute democracy, you will find that they are having a lot of divisions. You will find that democracy has created divisionism and actually classes where, some people are informed, therefore they are going to use information to, subdue the other that are not informed. Then you will find that some who have monies are influencing, leadership and everywhere. So for me, I'm looking at democracy, poverty, and capitalism in one basket as the root cause, that we are using this system where we are just, getting things from somewhere and we want them to work in Uganda. Now, if we can look at the democracy we are using in Uganda in a broader context, we elect MPs who are supposed to check, on the government or its expenditure and whatever they are doing. But you realize again, the people who are voting or who are choosing these MPs, they are ill-informed, or they are using, populist measures. This person is popular, therefore let me give him a vote so that he can go there. Now, you don't expect someone who has gone, on a populist card to the parliament that he will do much more better, because he will find people who have this information, who are more educated, who are more exposed and whatever. And they will always, use such people to drive narratives that don't, genuinely help to bring up the entire system. Now, the other issue I want to talk about is there is no way democracy can work in a country that is very poor. First of all, democracy is a system that is very expensive. One of the activities that are really very expensive to manage is to make sure that you cater for all citizens. It is not easy to cater for all citizens in a country that has poverty, because if you don't take care of certain groups, of course, you will find that corruption will rise. If you don't take care of certain groups, you will find that the youth will come out to really influence and want to take up a share. Now, I want to give an example of the Asian countries. You realize that these countries have grown so big, have grown wealthy, but they have determined their kind of political system they want. Look at Indonesia, look at Thailand, look at some countries like China and some Malaysia, Singapore. These countries have grown so huge. They are so big, they are taking care of their people. But you will find the system they are using, again, it is not the absolute democracy we are seeing, in different countries like in the West or Europe. So for me, my urge is the youth have got education, they have got, technology that is allowing, them to have free speech. But again, we need to emphasize civic education, that these youth can be streamlined in such a way that they don't spoil their country, but rather to move positively. Because, for example, here in Uganda,
As you conclude,
let's
Mr.
say,
Kuma.
okay,
As
for
you
example,
conclude.
here in Uganda, let's say, the youth want the government to go. Of course, the military will take over, and the military will also come with its own other things. So we are seeing, the emphasis of, throwing out government. It is not working at all in almost countries that have had that. But rather, how can we advocate for a better change of system, but making it, better rather than, scrapping it all that we have? Thank you.
Mr. Guma, thank you very much for that detailed thought. I will be asking you more. I've noted down some things which I want you to clarify, but I'll come back to you. Robert, you're very welcome. I'm asking that if I give you the microphone, if you can keep our submissions to about 1 or 2 minutes so that we can create space for other people to as well make a contribution. Robert, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Solomon. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you. Maybe you should organize another space for us to discuss how to leverage social media to promote civic education, because it felt like the previous speaker, that's the point they wanted to drive home. I'll dial back a little bit to Natif and a few other things. One, regime change is a whole different topic, perhaps a wider topic than what we are discussing today. In the context of social media and promoting democracy, all the youth are saying, fight corruption, and they are pointing you to the parliament. When it comes to dialogue, debate, everything, the Maos have sat on tables. What have they achieved through dialogue? Nothing. They have nothing to show for it. I mean, we have the Senyunis in the house saying Uganda Airlines is making losses. This one has stolen this. You're not acting. You're not acting. And when the youth come out, you want to bastardize their conversation to say, oh, they've been funded, or they've been done what, you've been misled. And then that is a space in which Tony is saying, we should be accommodative. When somebody is taken in the cells, you hear stories of torture, sodomy. When they come out, you want them to do what? To come and sit at a round table and say, let's have a civic, debate about corruption. I mean, at the end of the day, what we are trying to do as youth, as people in these spaces, is say, once we have an issue, act on addressing the issue and not the persons involved. At the end of the Parliament, March to Parliament campaign, we had a few people apparently being summoned or called by Honorable Nakalema to discuss. What did they discuss? What were the fruits of that dialogue? There's nothing to show for it. I mean, so again, whereas we think that some of our leaders in Parliament are even half-baked, that is true, but that's a story for another day. But what have the educated, the Katuntus, the Segonas done to show that when we send quality, leaders, educated people, this is what they achieve? Honorable Norbert Mao, a minister for what? Justice? What has he, did he even issue a statement on the illegal arrest of the youth for March to Parliament? No, he kept silent. Recently, only came out to say, our engagement with NRM will soon expire and I'll be, running for office as DP president. I mean, that means he went to the table, had discussions. They have not yielded fruit, at least at this stage. So let the dialogue go on in Parliament. What we, the outsiders, want to see is action. If we are saying that the Honorable Right Speaker is corrupt, what should the president say? Summon your NRM caucus and say, Madam Speaker, it is alleged that you've done ABCD. Can you please step aside? Let Honorable Taiwa run Parliament as you are being investigated. If your hands are clean at the end of the day, we will move on. Show the citizens the results of the fight. But I mean, we cannot be joining the president in lamenting and marching to Kororo, and be served Pirao by Baram, and we say we dialogued about corruption. At the end of the day, there's zero results. So it creates frustrations, which frustrations will sort of create this toxic environment. Why? Because one day you have a relative beaten, you have another arrested for some bogus charge, you have another sodomized or tortured, you have a colleague from, you've had elsewhere, the catastrophe of, Rusanja. I mean, these are things that frustrate people on a daily basis. And the beauty of it is that, for this government, is that they are now expressing it on social media. If I were in government, I'll be using social media as a listening tool if their leaders are not forwarding their issues. What are the citizens saying on social media? They are simply saying, let's fight corruption. That's the first step. There's a lot of other things that need to be addressed in this country, but corruption is the first stage. Let's start there. Allow me end here, Solomon.
Robert, thank you very much for your submissions. Thank you. Nelson, you're welcome, Mr. Nelson Senyange. Nelson Senyange, are you there?
Kasina requested.
You're very welcome. Karibu. Mr. Senyange, are you there?
Akazina, I don't think this is a request. Tebakatuda. What's up? These guys, I want to.
Okay. I think he's, we missed him there. But let me bring in Queen Javira. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Seranja. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. My point is very simple. First of all, specific individuals should not think that they own the struggle. Like it's a struggle for everyone. So everyone's opinions should matter. And then the other thing is people should learn how to retrospect and look. Like, I mean, you can't give an opinion and 1,000 people are telling you this won't work, this doesn't work. But someone cannot be like, okay, let me think about what I said. So I think that is not how we're going to move as a country, as a group that needs to have change. Yeah, that is just what I can say. Thank you.
All right, Queen Javira, thank you. We hear you. Thank you very much. Let me bring in King Masansa Musa. You're welcome.
Thank you, Solomon. I want to take us back. In 1986, some of the colleague, one comrade on the space was talking about dialogue, using terms as utopia, and then calling people savages. But look, in 1986 or 1985 or 86, when Museveni disagreed with government, he went to the bush. He picked up guns to fight. Even when there were avenues of them dialoguing, actually there was dialogue, as the likes of Elia Kategaya, may his soul rest in peace, were signing the peace agreement on behalf of the rebels and the government. Museveni, the rebel leader, who was now based in Tanzania, was attacking the bases of government. So that is the person you're talking about in terms of dialogue. And I want us to, because these are youth things, I want us, and I know music drives a lot of youths and causes and struggles. I want us to listen to Burna Boy's song called Monsters. He says, these are the monsters that you made. You cannot start blaming victims. Some of us have colleagues. I have a female friend who was raped. We tried all we can because she never wanted to come to the media or whatsoever. She was raped by state operatives because she belongs to NUP. She subscribes to the opposition. These are some of the things we do not come out to talk about on the media, on social media. We just have our pain. Some of our parents sacrificed. You do not know how much they sacrificed to put Museveni where he is. Some of us who have roots in Luelo, when I hear some people here joking or talking a lot of English that doesn't make sense, I sometimes get pissed and I just keep quiet. You know, we are not savages. If you speak and say, like that lady who has just gone off, and if you give an opinion and 1,000 people tell you it's wrong, it's wrong. You cannot convince them that this is the right path. Since when do you dialogue with a dictator? And someone was talking about democracy. We don't have democracy in Uganda. We have a painted democracy. The government is trying to paint a picture of democracy. That's why you see the media is involved. You're telling the youth are giving out this information. But look at your media houses. Look at New Vision. They are the key spin masters on behalf of the government. Look at NBS. I'm sorry to bring these people in. Look at Red Pepper. They run the propaganda machinery of the government. Daniel Rutaya was publishing results of elections in the previous election. The true results. What happened to those? We know all these things and we pretend like, okay, the problem is with the youth who comes out, or a person who comes out and calls a minister a pig or whatsoever. If Kakwenza tomorrow writes a poem or whatever post describing his torturers the way they are, that is the only tool he has been reduced to fight with. You know, you can't tell victims, you can't dictate to victims that, oh, this is the way you should be fighting us after we have sodomized you, after we have raped you, after we have beaten you, after we have arrested you, after we have... Man, it doesn't work like that. And for those of you who have been exposed, who have had a chance to attain foreign education, these are some of the things you should even not be talking about. Victims should be protected. They are not savages, for heaven's sake. Stop blaming them. If someone comes out on social media, the likes of Museveni went to the bush. Over 500,000 people were killed in Weru. There are no compensations up to now. Our great-grandfathers had coffee plantations, had coffee factories, you know. They lost all that. It is only a few families, like the family of the late Kaya, who have benefited, and not that they have benefited to a larger extent. What the hell are you talking about even? You do not know the pain. You just come here, speak good English. We know good English. We can bring all the jargons. Stop blaming the victims, I submit.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Your voice matters. Your voice is heard, and that you are speaking from a point of pain. Thank you, King Mansa Musa, for those submissions. I wanted to bring in Anna Ashaba. You're welcome.
Hi, Solomon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Happy International Youth Day to all the young people here. I would like to start with what Priam said. From the start, she said social media has become an escape route for most of us, and I agree with her. To the topic we are discussing, youth, digital spaces, and the quest for democracy, I think there are so many issues arising from all the speakers, and we might be losing the gist of the conversation where we are here. Social media as, you know, a channel to use to fight for democracy. Certainly, social media is not in itself a democratic space, but I think it's a tool for us to advance democracy. And how do we do that? There are so many ways. People have been creative through graphics, videos, spaces, and all that. I think that's one of the ways. I see social media as a form of organizing, and organizing is not always a piece of cake. We will clash, we will disagree, but then at the end of the day, when we have a common goal, that's what we should aim for. I think for me, one of the captivating things about social media organizing in Uganda is that whereas we are making progress, getting our voices heard in whatever form, because we get heard, we are surveilled, we are arrested, we are threatened. All that shows that the government is getting the feedback. I think for me, one of the things that has shocked me is we are not fully embracing the power of social media, because we still come with our biases, our classism, the misogyny, all forms of oppression still manifest in the way we use social media. And I think for me, it's a great tool that we could use to advance democracy. Is it enough? Certainly not. But given the current state of affairs, it is one of the safest ways to organize. You've seen we've gotten to a point where the government is saying we want to overthrow it through social media. I think if we can use social media to overthrow the government, I would be happy to do that. There is nothing wrong with overthrowing governments. This is our history. This guy came through gun violence. So if we are being labeled as rebels, want to overthrow the government. If social media can help us overthrow the government, then let's do it. We only have to keep reflecting on how we are challenging all forms of oppression. If today you are fighting corruption and the next moment you are making misogynistic texts and degrading women and all that, then it ruins the gains we've made in the struggle. So I think social media is an important tool in the quest for democracy. It has helped us register some wins. We might not see them as wins. It might not be enough. Maybe what we need to do is translate that action into wider spaces, into our communities. We connect because we are the connecting link. When we keep saying, "Oh, it does not reach many people," but we are the many people. We have families we come from. We have communities we come from. So we can take the conversations from social media to the public. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you very much, Anna Ashaba, for that conversation. Thank you very much for that feedback. Nelson, Mr. Nelson Senyange, are you there? Nelson Senyange, are you there? All right. Mase Grace Munduru, you're welcome.
Thank you, Solomon. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I know my connection is not very
Yes,
good.
we can hear you.
So just quick ones. One is that for us who have been in Uganda long enough, we know that there is no way we can say that the digital space is not the right tool in the quest for democracy, especially given how much it has influenced conversations, how much it has influenced responsiveness from the state. Over the years, I've not seen the state respond as fast as it has done with the advent of the digital media. And so we cannot downplay it as an important tool. Neither can we tell people how to use the digital space to advance democracy. This is one big fat struggle, and everybody within this struggle advances their beliefs differently, and we cannot demonize and say that we probably have patronized a specific tool, a specific way with which people should express how they feel and how they want to be governed. It's within their rights to really determine how they want to be governed and how they want to advance their issues. The thing is that, the proponents of other forms of mechanisms to advance democracy always feel the need to demonize one tool to make a case for the other. And I ask myself, why do you wait until somebody has led a movement on an issue before you start to, demonize their own movement and the tools they are using in their quest for the things they are fighting for? Before the march to parliament, we were all here on social media. Nobody was preaching dialogue. Nobody was advancing other ways through which they could achieve this change. Once the young people were on the streets, everybody became a philosopher of change. But over the years, they have done nothing to demonstrate to us that what they think is the way to change has worked. And this is what defeats the struggle. This is what defeats the struggle. You are looking at me. I am not your oppressor. These young people are not your oppressors. They are pressing against an issue that affects all of us. That should be the focus. If there is a way to get them faster to where they are going, then do it without demonizing their struggle. Do it without punching holes into the efforts people are making. Civil society was making efforts way before. There are other people, political parties, and all other groups. We should all be proud that citizens have taken this head on, especially young people. They are our biggest demographic anyway. So they are within their right to lead this movement as it is. Nobody should come and without starting a struggle that has succeeded, start to use that as the sure way to do so. Look at the people we're supposed to be dialoguing with today in a glass at a youth day. Which dialogue is going to happen through a glass? Let the young people in Uganda devise the way to the change they want to see. The future belongs to them, and they have every right to churn that path. People have come, they have played their part, others have paved way. The most we can do is to consolidate these gains, is to strengthen their struggles. Let us help. How can you help? How can you lend a hand? How can you use your space like Solomon is doing, using his space to facilitate this discussion? And many people are doing the same. There are people delivering food. There are people doing different things. But you do not force your ideologies on others and make it seem like it is the sure way. You cannot do that. And we have seen young people, not just in Uganda, in Bangladesh, in Kenya, in Nigeria, wherever young people are rising. And if you cannot rise with them, do not demonize them. If you cannot light their candle, do not put off the light of those whose bellies are burning for change in this country. And lest we lose, now you force us to have conversations that we shouldn't be having. We are supposed to be speaking about corruption. We're supposed to be speaking about the governance infrastructure in Uganda. But look at us. We are bickering with each other on the space. We are punching holes, trying to find fault in each other, washing our dirty laundry in public and pleasing the oppressor with our division. And then we want to try and strengthen our points in this space to say, my way is the best way. No, let us march forward to where we want to go. Let us focus on the issue. Let us stop punching holes. And let us stop giving ear and space and time for these bickerings that have emerged out of this small struggle. They are deliberately planted in this struggle to derail people and to ensure that our attention is taken away from the main issue. And I hope that everybody who is leading this change knows that these are tactics that are deliberately designed. These are strategies that have been thought about and discussed behind closed doors. They're just playing in the public spectrum. This is the same tone in civil society. At a certain point, people began to say, no, I think we should start dialoguing along this. I think it is better to sit on the same table with these other narratives that happened in civil society. They are happening in political parties, and now they've come to this movement. Please let us reject them. Let us churn the path and move forward. We shall find ourselves there at the junction of change. Thank you.
Solomon, I feel like I am one person against a crowd, and if I don't respond in time, you rob me of the chance to actually give substantive feedback.
Anthony, I am going to give you the mic. It's just that it's now plenary time, but you can note those down. I'll give an opportunity to you.
It's a lot. Mercy is heated. I wanted to give her feedback as soon as possible so she can cool down.
I'll give you the opportunity.
Okay, sir.
Let me just bring in at least 3 people, and then I can come back to the panel, and then we see what we can do moving forward. Thanks, Anthony, for understanding. All right. I'll give an opportunity to Edgar. Edgar Noe, you're welcome. Edgar Noe, are you there? Edgar Noe? Okay. Mr. Hashim Kapia.
Thank you so much, Solomon. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm going to hit right to the point of social media. I feel like we don't understand the advantage we have because in social media we have a congregation of people in the Ugandan environment who are well informed, who are articulate, who put out information that is important. You need to understand that before we had social media, a lot of these conversations were restricted to the newspapers and the TV stations where you have censorship and free speech. Yeah, I don't need to get into what censorship and free speech is because I believe we all know. But I want to be very direct. I like what Tony said because he was very open. However, I don't necessarily agree with him. If I'm to stick to the point of the issue that happened on the 23rd of July, when Tony says that more needs to be done, social media is part of a process. It's not an event. Yeah. The underlying denominator is that we need better governance for our country. Yeah. And this is a process. It's not an event. Lots of things happen in a process. We don't get our eyes off the goalpost. No, the target is we need better governance. If it means regime change, then it means that. However, we have said for a start, let's march to parliament because we want accountability for parliamentary spending. And the campaign began on social media. So when Tony says that we're not doing more, in this particular instance, he is wrong. It began on social media, and the more was the march to parliament. I feel like he ignores the fact that on 23rd and the days before 23rd, this plan was so articulate that it was the only way we could, I would say, hold a stick to the government without encouraging their heavy hand. And you know what happened? They still brought their heavy hand. They still arrested people. There's a previous space I was on where someone said they were slapped, people were sodomized in jail. So at the end of the day, the people in Uganda understand the history of our nation. The people in power are very violent. So we try to do what we can to demand accountability without exposing ourselves to the things that they can do to us and we know, without giving them the opportunity for them to blame us, which they eventually do, but it doesn't stick in the end. As you saw that the headline in the New Vision about that funny plot that was going, I don't know who gave them that BS, but everyone knows that story can't stick because from the get-go, this campaign was mobilized on social media. So we do have, I call it, it's like a cache of facts. Social media is like our cache of facts. Tony says something, Solomon says something, Agara says something. We look at this information, we dissect it, we interpret it, and we forge our way forward. Now, as much as a lot of people think that there is a disorganized, in this area group of people who are leading this, if you do look at the information these people are putting out, it's counterintuitive to go with that assumption. If you look at the arguments people are bringing forward and the evidence, you cannot assume that these are the same people who want to ban their country. I mean, it makes no sense. There is completely no sense in that. Social media is our juxtaposition now, where we have all these ideas coming into place. Everyone, wherever you are, you're in Mbara, you're in Kampala, you feel like you have something to contribute to the national discourse, to the direction, which you ultimately know is one good governance, but we're starting with corruption. Let's meet on social media, let's talk. Let's talk, let's iron out our misunderstandings, let's gather all the information we need to hold the people accountable. And finally, this is just a reiteration. I have never seen my government panic as much as they did recently. Yeah, people will say the march to parliament was unsuccessful. I have a friend who is a Kenyan, and we are trying to analyze the outcomes of the different situations, the demonstrations that were in Kenya and those that were in Uganda. Yeah, and we realized that the Kenyan demonstration happened because of the democracy that they have, which is a bit more advanced than ours. Now, in Uganda, we would not attempt to do that. So we took the moral and intellectual high road. Yeah? We knew what these guys are going to do. We promised them we will not commit violence in the streets. We took the social media argument and debates to them. We're like, we are marching to parliament. There were, I think, seven requests that were made. All of them made logical sense for someone whose main goal is for the greater good of our country. Yeah? So when you look at how Kenyan demonstration panned out, which up to now is still in chaos, I feel like when Tony gave all those examples of the Arab Spring and all those things, he was very misguided. Maybe eventually that might come from our social media rants and all that. But at the moment, we are very much grounded because we know who we are dealing with. That said, I also feel like, I'm addressing Tony here, I feel like you spend so much attention on the people who are demanding change and almost entirely ignore the people who need to be held accountable for these things. That's my submission for this evening. And thank you so much for everyone who is contributing. It's really important that we keep these conversations going on.
All right, thank you, Hashim. Thank you very much for those submissions. Two more people, and then I come back to my panel. And as we continue, I can see Rama Chizito. Okay, Ismail, you're welcome. Ismail Wandera, karibu. Mr. Ismail Wandera, are you there? Ismail Wandera? All right, we lost you. Apostle Jonah, you're welcome, Jonathan.
Yes, I hope you can hear me. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, wherever you're listening in from. I thank you for the opportunity to share with my fellow young people. And blessed be his name, our Lord Jesus. Now, the digital space and the quest for democracy in Uganda. Democracy is a fundamental human right, and especially for us that are under the Commonwealth. And I keep on telling people, those that I share with thoughts with oftentimes, is that a person like me, I don't see any other home apart from Uganda. I don't see myself outside Uganda at whatever cost. So I push so many times that whatever I desire or whatever I want should be done down here. That we should have it in Uganda. But anyway, to go back to the conversation, are we using the digital space? Is it something that can drive change, the democracy that we want? Yes. We've seen what it has done elsewhere. We've seen what online has done in Kenya, what it has done in Ethiopia, what it has done in Somalia. Trump, when he was still a president, in the first term he had, Trump used to belittle TikTok. I saw him recently joining, and in just 24 hours, he gained 1.4 million followers. The vice president right now, and the incoming potential president for the USA, Kamala Harris, she also joined TikTok. And in a night, I think she gained over 1.2 million followers. So it shows you the impact that digital spaces have. It's now going to be upon us as Ugandans, as millennials, as Gen Zs, to choose how we use it profitably, to demand for accountability and for what we desire. We've seen that all the conversations that are in Parliament now are coming off from social media. The speaker used to belittle and say she doesn't respond to rumor mongers on social media. She now wants to hold these Twitter spaces to talk about the corruption and the scandals around Parliament. It tells you that we are poking them and we are touching them in the right spaces. We just need to now to eliminate our individual and personal differences and focus and understand that our enemy is one. Is that one person that has stayed in politics for over 40 years? That one executive director that has stayed here for 40 years? That has denied us, because Article 29 gives me the right to demonstrate peacefully. Because the recent demonstrations that I saw, no one was violent. We were all very peaceful Ugandans, demanding for accountability, demanding for our monies. Our debt to GDP ratio is about 52% of our budget, which is 72 trillion. So that's what we are demanding. And that I don't need to be bribed. I don't need to be funded by anyone to know that. I don't need to be funded to know that as I'm going back home, today I'll buy a liter of milk at 3,500 and tomorrow it will be 4,000 Ugandan shillings. I don't need to be funded to know that. And when I'm going to buy that, I don't buy it as a man of God. I don't buy it as an apostle. I buy it as a Ugandan. And that's where I'm coming from. That today, even if I decided to keep quiet, my daughter, I have 2 daughters. My daughter will give birth in a health facility and she will die because there was negligence. Because there was negligence. 18 mothers die every day while you're giving birth. I may choose to keep quiet today and not say a thing, and my sister will be shot at, and the government will come out to say it was a stray bullet, and no one will be accounted for. We've seen the landslides that have just happened, and you're compensating these people with 5 million Ghana shillings. What can 5 million do? 5 million Ghana shillings? And those ones that have survived with injuries, you're giving them 1 million shillings? Is that the sustainable solution that you can offer to us? So, fellow Ugandans, fellow young people, the digital space must be used profitably. Those guys are hearing us. As we speak now here, they are here in pseudo accounts. They are hearing us. They are hearing us. Kenya showed us that digital spaces can do a lot. We can mobilize, we can overwhelm them peacefully. Peacefully. And let's go to, maybe finally, if we went to the Bible, this group that is governing us now came here violently. 500,000 Ugandans died violently. And this is not a group that is going to hand us the democracy we want. But we're not going to fight back violently as they did. We are going to find any solution peacefully within the law to fight back. But they're very popular. I think everyone now I think everyone is acquainted with the Exodus, the book of the Exodus, the movement of the children of the children of God from their bondage in Egypt to the promised land. When those children were moving, they displaced people in the promised land. They displaced over 7 tribes. Over 7 tribes. What does that mean to you as a young person out there? That for us to demand for what we want, we must displace a certain group. We must displace a certain group that has eaten your future, that has eaten the future of your children and that of the grandchildren. And for me, that comes with a lot of pain. I don't have any other home apart from Uganda. I don't see myself elsewhere apart from Uganda. I think earlier today I was looking at the UN statistics showing that Uganda is the second country with the immigrant workers that have settled permanently in other countries. We come second after which is Sudan. So I don't see myself living here. I have children here. I have relatives here. And we need to use all possible means to fight back to the oppression that we are receiving. And no one is going to hand it over to us. We must fight back peacefully and use any tools possible. And I must guarantee you, with the use of social media, because the president, before he makes any communication elsewhere, even in print, he first does it online. He hears us. It's loud and clear. And let all forces, let no one belittle you that you're not being heard. Trust me, let no one tell you that. Those people are listening, those people are hearing, and we must press harder. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for making those submissions. Time is going. So Rama Chisto, you have the final say, then I come back to my panelists. Rama, you're welcome.
All right, thank you, Solomon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the masses. I'll go straight to the point. As someone who was actively involved in the March to Parliament protest, I witnessed firsthand the power and challenges faced by the youth in the quest for democracy in Uganda. And one of my roles that I gave myself, by the way, we are not sponsored, I needed to clear that, was to ensure that every individual who was arrested during these protests was accounted for. And it really gave me a very unique perspective on the intersection of activism, digital spaces, and the fight for democratic values. Digital platforms like Twitter right now have become very essential tools for things like activism in Uganda. And social media channels, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, have allowed young people to organize, first mobilize, and then amplify their voices in ways that were previously unimaginable. And during the recent protests, that is the March to Parliament, these platforms were really crucial in disseminating information, coordinating efforts, and rallying support for those that were arrested, both monetary from our local people, the Ugandans, and things like prison visits as well. And the digital space served as a lifeline for many of us who were ensuring that no one was forgotten. No matter how chaotic the situation became on ground, we soldiered on. However, the digital space is not without its challenges. The Ugandan government has previously and increasingly employed tactics to stifle online dissent, and that has included internet shutdowns, as you remember, the election time, social media taxes, something that we keep forgetting, and then the surveillance. And during the protests, the recent ones, we faced significant obstacles in maintaining communication as the state sought to control the narrative and prevent the world from seeing the reality on the ground. But despite all these efforts, the resilience of the youth and the adaptability of our strategies allowed us to circumvent many of these barriers. Talking a little bit about now the power of the youth. The youth of Uganda are not just passive consumers of information. They are active participants in shaping the future of our democracy. And the March to Parliament protest demonstrated the immense power that we young people have when we come together for a common cause. We were not just protesting against specific government actions. We were honestly demanding for a seat at the table, so to say, and a voice in the decisions that affect our lives. And at an end of injustices, of course, that have been with us for quite some time, and the stories that our parents tell us as well. And when we come to now accountability and things like justice, one of the most significant aspects of the protests was ensuring accountability for those who are unjustly arrested. And as someone who took on that responsibility for accounting for everyone detained, I really witnessed the critical role that these digital tools play in the process. Social media was not just a platform for mobilization, but also for a lot of documentation. We saw a team that came up with a website similar to the one of Kenya, where those arrested, those given bail, were all documented, and were able to track all those arrests. Were also able to coordinate legal assistance and maintain a little bit of pressure on the authorities to release those that were unlawfully detained. And this experience highlighted, of course, again, the importance of digital spaces in the fight for justice and the protection of human rights. As I conclude, I just want to talk a little bit about the democracy in Uganda that is ongoing, and seeing the youth at the forefront of this struggle. Digital spaces have gone ahead to give us the tools to challenge the status quo, to hold our leaders accountable, and to demand for the freedoms and rights that are included in our constitution. And we still have a long way to go, but I think it is a great step. I want to believe and concur with the rest of the speakers that it says social media is actually our biggest platform. We don't have the guns. We won't go to the bush. We don't have that power. Excuse me, we don't have that foreign finding. We are going to use what we have. And as I conclude, the youth of Uganda, armed with the power of social media and digital spaces, a formidable force in the quest for democracy. And our experiences during the recent protests serve as a testament to our resilience, our determination, and our commitment to a better future. So as we continue this fight, it is very, very crucial that we remain vigilant, adaptable, and united in our pursuit of justice and democracy for all Ugandans. I thank everyone for being part of this space. And yes, I raise my case for now.
Ramachizito, thank you.
Wow.
And you literally have ended the plenary session. Thank you very much, Ramachizito. Let me go back to my panelists to share their views and thoughts, answer some questions, and then we come back and then we see what we can do, whether we can close the space or I can pass on the mantle to someone else to co-host. All right, let me start with Anthony Natif. You're welcome.
Man, thank you so much, Solomon, and thank you to whoever contributed, subbed me some of them. Thank you still. I noticed that most of these questions have been directed at me, especially the angrier ones. And I understand why people might be angry. I can't say I'm going to answer all of them one by one, but I'll try in the interest of time. I'll start with King Mansa Musa, who has not only come out angrily against my position on this space, but also in writing. King, I'm really sorry to hear about your friend's ordeal when they were captured and tortured in safe houses. Certainly no one wants to go through that. I can also tell you when I was running Guardian, there was a young employee of mine, a 23-year-old girl, who was barely political, but all her interests, she just loved Bobby Wine and posted about him on her Facebook page. And one day people showed up at work and disappeared with her. And we had to go through a rough ordeal to get her out of the safe houses. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and I certainly understand where your anger is coming from. You also say, I can't tell you or the victims how to fight back, and I most certainly agree with that statement. I'm sorry if it appeared that I was telling you how to fight back. I want to think I was telling you that personally, and maybe with Public Square, the organization that I work with, where I'm team lead, we believe that there's an alternative route. So I'm hoping that just as you implore me to respect your opinion and your right to react however you want, I hope that you as well will respect my right to voice an opinion that you don't agree with. It doesn't make me a savage, and I certainly didn't call anyone a savage. Now, you said that when 1,000 people tell you it's wrong, something is wrong, you should change it. King Mansa Musa, I don't know how much of human history you know, but you know, if this belief was to hold, quite frankly, you would still believe up to today that the sun rotates around the earth as opposed to the other way around. So I think let's allow room for dissent, even when the numbers say otherwise. In a democracy, you can win by 99.999%. It doesn't mean you disregard the beliefs and the desires of the minuscule percentage people that didn't vote for the winning side. So just as we beseech other people to respect our opinions and our views and not tell us how to think, I am hoping that we take the same medicine, and hopefully with that we can build a more inclusive, less heated society that contests ideas in the marketplace of ideas respectfully and without shedding blood or even virtual blood that some of us have been shedding on the timeline for not singing Kumbaya like the rest may want to have it done. Now, I'll go to Mercy. I think I've answered King Mansa Musa's questions. The rest, you can find me on the TL. We are friends on the TL. Mercy Monduru. I respect Mercy's work. I've been a keen follower of her work. I appreciate the anger she has. Anger is good. Anger is very good when well channeled. I also really don't know where she got the notion that I am saying that the digital space isn't an important tool. I quite frankly started by reading off stats and telling people that the digital space is a fantastic area for citizen expression and all sorts of things, citizens petitioning their governments to do better and all that stuff. And if Mercy cared to check, the organization that I lead, founded and lead, Public Square, has been playing in the digital market space for quite a while. And if she goes back to some of the most impactful anti-corruption exhibitions, the exhibition I want to think that really started this whole idea of people using government documents and believing in the agency of the citizens to interpret these documents as they are and form their own opinions and come up with an action plan was actually started by Public Square. You might remember our work in the coffee exhibition. You might remember a lot of work we did in the parliamentary exhibition. If anything, of all exhibitors, I was the only one who got direct death threats from the Speaker of Parliament. So for someone to come and say, oh, I'm just wet behind the ears, I am a government spokesman, I am getting people to go off course, simply because I am using our own history to tell people that maybe there's another way. And then If you don't agree with that, it doesn't give you latitude to just insult and call all manner of names. We can be civil. Mercy, quite frankly, you have been on the activism block for eons. You remember back in the Black Monday movement, you remember it had the same energy, it had the same vigor, it had the same anger. We've been banging our heads against the wall, using the same process, and we come back to the same conclusion. When you frame the narrative into we are fighting an oppressor, we need to get rid of an oppressor, you reduce the whole idea to just the few citizens who believe the only problem this country has is President Museveni. President Museveni is what, in his 80s? Very few Ugandans, less than 0.4% of Ugandans can claim to be Museveni's age, President Museveni's age or older. Biology will take its course. My idea is my conversations are around what happens if tomorrow we wake up and the president died in his sleep. Will your entire cause disappear? Shall we say the dictator has gone, therefore Uganda has peace? Are we going to wake up to Uganda that is fantastic and working for everyone? Are we going to wake up to Uganda that has medicines in all hospitals and doctors on the wards? Are we going to have to wake up to Uganda with potholes gone and everything working? No. And that's the conversation I'm beseeching people to have. It does not mean I am against people walking onto the street. Now, I understand that society is built on narratives, and oftentimes there's this saying that you English speakers have, and I'm sure, Mercy, you're very familiar with this. If you want to beat up a dog, just start by giving it a bad name. When you see how my Safe Corridor conversation in the wake to the March to Parliament was framed, you would think Natif came out and said, guys, don't go to the street. No, all Natif said is there is an option of people gathering in Zambia at the police playground, give your speeches, then these people will move through Mukwano Road, no traffic, cross via Electoral Commission, go to Parliament, 4 of them go, Parliament agreed to hold a special sitting of Parliament, they present their petition and walk away and go home. Now, in a country where barely 3 years ago, in the wake of the 2021 elections, the government flawed people. It probably killed more than 100 people in less than an hour. And by some reports from medical students, some of these bodies were fed to anatomy labs in medical schools. I come from a medical background. I understood that. I also come from a civically aware family. I have seen that in Uganda over the last 40 years, we cannot claim to have had a peaceful citizen demonstration. So if you have citizens locked in a battle of wills with the state, and you want to advance social progress, you want to advance civic discourse, you want to advance and make mainstream the idea that citizens can protest bad governance safely, you cannot not propose such an idea. And was it popular? No. Could it have worked? Absolutely, because I mean, the parliament tweeted it was expecting it. The police spokesperson for a day into the protest said, we have mapped out routes for everyone, please get to it. People, for some reasons that they believe, and I frankly respect that, chose the other alternative, and I hold no grudge. I am hoping that the people who are pushing this narrative that Natif was against protests go back and look at Twitter before Natif started being active, political Twitter, and political Twitter after Natif started active, after Public Square started playing in the space of exhibitions and before. And then let's come back and argue on the data. Now, I will go to Hashim Kapia. I have just 2 people to answer. I'm really sorry. I'll go to Hashim Kapia. I have to thank you for your submission, Hashim. I really liked the tone and the ideas you advanced. We fundamentally differ on the methods, but we all agree that we all need collective input. You say, on the other hand, and here I disagree, that I spend so much time on demanding better behavior from the oppressed, quote unquote, than demanding the same from government officials. I also want you to go back on the TL and look at which organization playing in this social media space has exposed more corruption scandals in this country in this year than Public Square. I challenge you to bring those data and we run them side by side. You can even combine the top 10 organizations that you believe are working in this anti-corruption space. Bring the data and say, these 10 organizations combined have worked on Umeme, they have worked on this, they have worked on Parliament, they've worked on this. And then Public Square and myself will bring the data and show you the campaigns we've pushed over that year. And believe you me, our campaigns will outnumber those campaigns. It's just that you're buying into a false narrative that we are somehow, by suggesting a non-partisan approach, because we are firm believers that the politics of division is not what's going to build this country. It is the politics of uniting everyone. It is not, it shouldn't be framed as a zero-sum game. It's us against the oppressors. These oppressors are as oppressed as we are. Now, finally, Apostle Jonah. Apostle Jonah,
in a minute.
Yes, just less than a minute. Apostle Jonah, all I'm going to say to you is, amen. I hope that your desire to grow old in this country and see, have your children see the Uganda you desire and Uganda that works for everyone comes to pass. Thank you very much, Solomon, and really thank you to your audience that has asked so many tough questions, has called me names, has done everything possible to make sure civil discourse is advanced. I think spaces like this are fantastic for building a society that we all desire. And thank you for the people who sacrificed to move on the streets and spent time in prison. I've looked at your stories. I've visited some of you. They are very sad stories. You're the heroes that our country deserves. And please keep at it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Anthony, responding to those questions. Let me come to B-Wall. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Solomon, and everybody who's been listening and still is listening to the space, and everyone who has contributed. As has been mentioned already, spaces like these are, a step in the right direction in the sense that, they create a platform for us to, have this discourse that Natif wants us to have, but then also listen to people's stories and not just shut people down, right? Two things I want to mention as I kind of, wind up maybe. One is that I think it would be in this regime's best interest to listen to people, right? And by listening to people, I mean listen to the young population, because as has been said over and over again, Uganda is mostly a young country in the sense of the population is a young population. But the reason why I worry for their ability or their willingness to listen is, while the population is young, their leaders are not young. The average age of ministers is, 65, 67 years old, which should tell you the intent and the purpose of the people at the top, that while we might want them to listen to us, they might not be too bothered to listen. That's one. The other thing we need to understand as young people in Uganda is that
hata mambo ya university hatujakubaliana,
a very interesting
tumekubaliana mambo ya university,
that the things we are doing now will
mambo ya barabara tujenge,
and that's for sure.
Ya shule tujenge.
We'll come across so many hurdles and whatnot, but we must not give up. Yes, and somebody already mentioned that everybody has a role to play. Your role might not be walking on the street and getting arrested. Your role might be, going out there and writing something. Your role might be being in a church during a sermon, telling your congregation about the issues. Your role might be actually being in parliament and legislating. Your role might be speaking directly to people who are corrupt. So everybody has a role to play. The one thing, as Mercy mentioned here rightly, the one thing we cannot afford to do is to think one person's role is weaker or stronger than another person's role. It's that simple, because we are all fighting for the same thing, which is a better country. It's as simple as that. The other thing that the young people in Uganda also need to understand, and why I say this is a very interesting time in our history, is that the young person in Uganda, if you compare them to the young person in Kenya, the young person in Kenya, and we're talking about the people who are leading the revolution and whatnot, the young person in Kenya has seen a minimum of 4 presidents. William Ruto is president now. Before him, they saw Uhuru Kenyatta. Before him, they saw Mwai Kibaki. Before him, they saw Arap Moi, right? So they have some kind of understanding and appreciation of change. They see it has happened in their lifetime. The young person in Uganda, on the other hand, cannot even fathom. Their understanding of change is obscure. It's developed out of thin air. So it's understandable when we have this call for people to join the revolution, and there's 2, 3, 4, 5 people on the street. It's understandable. The young person in Uganda, for you to sell change to them, it's a bit of a trick, right? But that does not stop us from fighting for that change. That does not stop us from going on the good journey. That does not stop us from preaching against the things that we think this regime is doing. And so for me, my belief is that the change might not even come in my lifetime, right? But it will never discourage me from fighting, right? There might be people who are on the front line with me, but they have wrong motives. That will never discourage me. I might be in a position where, in trying to struggle for change, the person who's next to me is spying on me. That will never discourage me. For me, it's that simple. As long as you are well-intentioned, forget about everything else. And I think, in summary, while I understand, people like Natif, I want to say speaking truth to our revolution and occasionally poking holes in it here and there, I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we, who are actually trying to create change, are the same people talking down the change. That would be a disservice to us, and I think we would be doing this great nation a very, very huge disservice. I think everybody has a role to play. Every young person should recognize that we are at a very strange time in our history where everybody should wake up, rise up, and finally, no matter what you do, no matter where you are, never think that your contribution is insignificant. Never ever think that. Never think your contribution is insignificant. Everyone has a role to play. Thank you, Solomon.
Thank you very much, Bernard, for that. Precious, you're welcome. Precious, are you there? All right.
Yes, Solomon, I'm right here.
Okay, Karibu.
Okay, thank you. I'll start from the point of being accommodative. I think Ugandans are the most accommodative people that I know. Having a speaker who is corrupt, sanctioned, the prime minister, the deputy president, all the ministers being, corrupt. Not long ago, we are all, implicated in this iron sheet saga. I think Ugandans are very patient people and very accommodative. Sometimes angry, okay, but being accommodative, I think they are very, very accommodative. And then, of course, being in a country where young men are arrested and raped just for wanting change, and then someone says Ugandans are not accommodative, I still think Ugandans are very, very accommodative. So, dear Ugandans, the youth of these Ugandans, I urge you to speak up, speak up, speak up. Even if they tell you you're not being heard, speak up. Because this is the only thing that we've been left to do. This is the only power that we still hold. And it's up to us not to let go of this power. Speak up until you are heard. Speak up. If you're not heard, shout. If it means shouting to be heard, shout. And if you shout and you're not heard, stand up. It is your civic duty to stand up and protest peacefully. Let no one tell you nothing, And I think one of the speakers was like, we always have like 1 million people on the spaces, and only 200 people showed up on the streets. Yes, in the 1980s, the historians know that in the midst of a country where everyone was tired of the system, only 27 university boys took up the guns and went to fights. You know what it means? Only 27 fighting against, a dictatorship that was running that time. They believed in themselves. So sometimes it's not about the numbers. It is the quality of the numbers. I think we will already explain that. It is the quality of the numbers and the consistency and the urge and the need to fight and and end this corruption. Okay, so to those Ugandans that are on the course, don't give up, be consistent. Time will come when Ugandans will hear you, they will hear us.
All right.
And of course, and I want to end by saying, that Ugandans for the first time came up to speak in one language, leaderless, voiceless. And I want to say the march is still on. We are marching until Anita resigns. Thank you so much, Solomon, for having me tonight. It was an honor.
Precious, thank you very much for your contributions. Godwin Toko, you're welcome.
I hope now you can hear me certainly.
Clearly.
Thank you. I've been
welcome.
struggling. I've been struggling the whole day. But yeah, I think we need more of these discussions and spaces because there's a lot of research that shows that a huge majority of Ugandans prefer democracy as a system of government. Whether you go back to the making of the 1995 constitution, that was one of the most democratic processes, at least from what I have read, where so many people were consulted, students and everybody. They wanted a system of government that is democratic. Even more recently, I think it's an Afrobarometer poll that said that about 75% of Ugandans would want to be governed by a democracy. Of course, that doesn't mean that our democracy is perfect. It simply means that there's much more work to do. And how that much more work is done, many times it's about leaders being held accountable by their citizens. Recently, I was on a talk show where someone, a member of parliament, after I raised the hell of a storm over corruption, and he said, "Why don't you just become a member of parliament?" And that is a question we hear often. Each time you criticize, they say, "Why don't you go and become it?" That shouldn't be the question we're being asked. Because at any one point in time, they're going to just be about how many? 600 MPs and one president and how many ministers. So the rest of us who are not in those positions must hold those who are in those positions accountable, because their decisions, when not held accountable, is going to affect us on this side. So spaces like this are very, very important, and digital platforms like this are very, very important, especially for the young Ugandans who many times are told that they have a bigger stake in this country. Because yes, if we mess it up now, you could live the next 30 years in a country that is in turmoil or under a dictatorship, another dictatorship, and things like that. Now, going back to some of the issues that were raised earlier by some of the panelists, I still maintain that everybody should be allowed to operate whatever method of pushing for democracy that they want. If you want to go on the streets, 100% okay to go on the streets. If you want to push for dialogue, 100% go and push for dialogue. I think where the problem comes is when you think that you need to push other people to do what you want. That for me is a point of departure. So push whatever you want. If it works, like I said sometime back in a tweet, you got none of us, not even the Ugandans who are 60 years old, have been in the situation where they were living with a dictatorship like the kind we have right now, that had zero minimal regard for the citizens. And if you want to see that, I will insist, go to Lusanja and see what happened there on Saturday. Yeah, where the first excavator, I'm told, came at midday. And this is something that happened around 7 a.m. in the morning. So if you have such a kind of government that has very minimal regard for the people, people splashing the kind of money that we see they're splashing in parliament, the kind of corruption that is runaway corruption, the arrest of young people who are simply saying there should be no corruption and all that. So it is something we are all learning on the job. There's no expert. You can quote whatever you want about the Arab Spring. You can quote whatever you want to quote about Kenya and all these other places. Since we are learning on the job, do it. Let us also do this part. Maybe if each of us pulled from wherever we are pulling, we'll eventually get what we want. Yeah, and then finally, Solomon, as I conclude, I think the other important thing that we must say is that as Ugandans, I don't think, and I think Precious tried to make this point, and she did really well. I don't think Ugandans are people that are against dialogue. Many times it's the politicians that will cause so many problems for these Ugandans. If you want to see this, you go to any of the slums in Kampala I am privileged that I've lived in a slum before. I have lived in some people's rich neighborhoods before and all this. And I know that in those ghettos, you'll meet there people who are the most down-to-earth people. They have different tribes, different religions, and they don't have any of these problems that people say that Ugandans have all the time. They're not fighting each other over politics. They're not fighting each other over religion. They're just living their lives, trying to get along, facing the same challenges each and every day. So this narrative of saying, oh, you don't want to listen, let's push for dialogue and all that, as if there's a problem. I think many times it's that the government gives people very minimal space to engage politically. And earlier, someone said that why are people talking about, for instance, Lusanja, and they're not talking about the role of the shadow cabinet? The thing with Lusanja, for instance, is that KCCA itself carried out a study that showed that landfill had outlived its usefulness, its lifespan, I think as far back as 2012. So it's not for lack of knowledge that these guys committed all these murders by negligence. It is that they just have impunity and they are corrupt and they're saying what will be done. So it has never been a challenge that we lack what to do. So for me, basically, with all that we have said today and with all that we've had, I think we need to keep holding leaders accountable. Whichever way you do it, that is up to you. I wish you success. I will do what I can, and I hope everyone else can do what they can, because I know that there are people who don't have hands, so they will not do things the way I do them. There are people who don't have my voice, so they won't say things the way I say them. There are people who don't have the means that I have or the means that you have. But if you do have those means, don't sit on a high pedestal and start telling us, this is how it's done. Come on, sir. Come on, madam. Go and do it. Thank you, Solomon. Have a good night.
I see lawyers here, I see doctors, I see accountants, I can see everyone around here. Thanks. Toko.
Solomon, there's a message that I wanted to read as we head out for the night.
Hold on, I just have
From
Cliff.
Raymond.
Yeah, I have Cliff, who also has to make his final views. Then I can bring you on to read that message. Okay, Cliff, you have the final say, and then I'll give my final thoughts and we close the space. Cliff, you're welcome. Mr. Cliff, are you there? Cliff? Okay.
Yes, Solomon.
Oh, okay. Your final thoughts before we close the space?
First of all, I want to thank you for hosting this space. And as a wrap up, I want to leave you with some crucial reflections on what you've thought, and to be specific about fake news and misinformation on young people, especially in the digital space and in our quest for democracy in Uganda. In today's world where information flows rapidly, fake news and misinformation pose significant challenges, especially for our youth who are deeply engaged online. And these false narratives can distort perceptions, influence opinions, and ultimately impact democratic participation. And this makes it essential for us to be vigilant and informed. And also, the digital space, while a powerful platform for connection and expression, can also be a breeding ground for misinformation. And social media algorithms can often create echo chambers, hence reinforcing existing beliefs and amplifying false information. And our youth, who are often at the forefront of digital trends, particularly susceptible to this phenomenon. Now, some of the things that we can counter these issues is things like media literacy and critical, which I believe are very key things. We also need to equip young people with the skills to evaluate information critically, to recognize reliable sources and question dubious claims. And by doing so, we empower them to navigate the digital world more effectively and contribute. Also, young people have a crucial role to play in this fight by leveraging digital tools for fact-checking, sharing accurate information, and engaging in meaningful dialogue. With this, they can help combat misinformation and promote transparency.
All right. For some reason, we've been losing you, but thanks. Thank you very much, Cliff. I think we've heard you loud and clear. We have about 6 minutes. Tony, you wanted to say something real quick before I give
Yes,
my
I
closing
wanted to
thoughts?
read. I wanted to read a tweet, at least part of it, from Raymond Mojuni, your colleague, this morning at around, no, this afternoon at around 12:46. He wrote something. He said, "There's a lot of justified anger at the state of affairs in Uganda, but anger alone is not enough. It's possible, even with a change of guard that's publicly hailed, we could remain in the same state or worse. How are we thinking strategically about how to govern Uganda?" Now, my closing remark is, how do we use the tools of organizing that we have at our disposal, including social media, to build a formidable force to steer Uganda into a different direction? Mr. Kakwenza has just tweeted something where he says, "My grandfather, my father," and now have been saying the same stories. They're the same stories I'm telling my daughter. How do we use the tools of mobilization that we have so that we can then, our children can tell different stories of the of how Uganda functions, of how Uganda is governed? For me, I think Raymond's tweet today was very powerful, and it spoke to my views and approach to this discussion. And thank you again for everyone who has participated. I appreciate it.
Right, thanks, Anthony Atif, and Raymond as well has been on the space. Thank you, everyone who has been part of this discussion. Usually, I take the last 2 minutes to give my views and then close the space. I think that what, for me, hosting such spaces means is that we're able to listen to each other, irrespective of our differences in opinions, and shape a way forward. And I think giving everyone an opportunity to give their views and respect them is justified. Isn't that what democracy is about? It's the ability for us to debate and listen to each other, even with our difference in opinion.
You wouldn't have to tell us every single day. We would know.
We listen to each other and forge a way forward.
If the economy was doing so great, you wouldn't have to tell us every single day. We would know.
To discuss these things, imagine which talk show how much money would we even, pay to discuss all these things? Even the diversity of opinions, I think we can take advantage of them. And like everyone said, each of us have a role to play in our different spaces to actually make sure that we contribute to a better country. And for me, my pledge is that I'll continue to provide that platform and join the rest of you who host these spaces so that we can talk through some of these things. It's really an honor hosting you this evening. Thank you for everyone who've joined all throughout from the time that we began at 6 o'clock. It's 3 minutes to 9. I appreciate all my panelists. Thank you, Precious. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, Anthony, Cliff, and Godwin for being part of the space. A special thank you to everyone who's listened all through. It's been an honor. My name is Solomon Serwanja. Good night and God bless.